The hard thing to do is understanding how you will balance your day, your ways of working as a leader, right? One hard thing that every leader has to do is keep switching context. And that is something that one needs to improve as a skill to become a leader. It doesn't mean that what you have created is bad or incorrect. They are looking at it from a different perspective, so try to understand their perspective. And I think the best way is to make sure you have some data points to defend your design decisions.
Hey Shreyasi, thanks for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Hey Kavan, how are you? I'm good. And thank you so much for inviting me for this podcast.
I'm good as well, and thank you for coming. I feel the kind of experience you've had in your career is what a lot of design students, a lot of design professionals would aspire to be at, and they may have seen you, in similar walks of life. I know you started off doing arts, and then you kind of jumped into UX, and then
Yep.
you've kind of worked in consulting. You've worked with startups. You also worked in enterprise, and now you're leading quite a important function for from the biggest companies in the world when it comes to enterprise, if not the biggest company. And I think, my first question to you was to understand, when did you decide that you want to build a career in this area, right? Was it a particular project? Did something happen in college? What made you switch, your focus? So if you could just give us a little bit of a download on that.
Sure. So I'll start from start. Actually, yeah, you were right. I started my career as a graphic designer. I'm a BFA in applied arts, and I came to Mumbai with this whole dream of getting into advertising, right? And I worked in advertising as a freelancer for a couple of months. But that's when I started to understand this whole new era of UI, right? And that time there wasn't UX as a field. It was mostly web designers who were building websites. And I was working for a localization company called Lionbridge. And I worked there for a couple of months, and I was basically given the opportunity to create icons for Hewlett Packard, the HP printer brand. They were coming with phones, these phones which would have styluses. And I got to know that they would have icons which need to be, stylus touch friendly. So I started sort of getting myself better in understanding what this field is all about. And I was like, oh, this is something very different, right? And that's when I moved to do my master's in interaction, learn a bit more about it. So that was my start of my career. And post I completed master, I had a great opportunity to work for a e-learning edtech company. And I think some of the key design principles that I till today use on my day-to-day work is what I learned in that company. I actually got to build a product from scratch, and they were building product called, it was called Go Class at that time. And what was happening is in around early 2012-14 is when United States schools started allowing students to bring their own devices into the classroom. So there's this whole technology boom happening. Everyone wanted tech enabled applications. And as part of that education domain, we built like a product which would allow teachers and students to interact with each other within the classroom. So that actually helped me understand, like, the diverse set of users I need to cater to, students of different age group, teachers at different needs. So really trying to understand the diverse audience. And then end-to-end product delivery. It was a mid-sized company, and I was the only designer who was working on not just building the UI for the screens and all. I was also doing logo design. I was making their website. I was working on building the design UI patterns, right? Pattern library and things like so that helped me understand the a lot of thing, consistency, why I need to be consistent, right? How I need to reuse my assets across these different touch points. So that is something I learned there. And then when we shipped the product out, we were in the school, we went to the schools to see how students and teachers are using our products. We were like shell shocked with some of the gaps that we had in our product. So that is when our eyes opened, and I'm like, oh my God, we should have done a lot more testing, the validation, and give it to users early on in the product. So yeah, it was like, I would say, foundational of my career till date.
Fantastic. I think, I actually want to ask you your opinion on this. When I talk to, I've done probably hundreds of workshops in the last 10 years with design students. A lot of people are very excited about UX right now because it's obviously it pays very well and it's very high much in demand and it
Right.
genuinely helps move business metrics in the digital world we live today, right? I see a lot of students being very apprehensive about UX, generally because a lot of them say, in my school on my 11th and 12th, I got very fascinated with artistry, craft. I had a good eye for aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And you see now that it's really become about problem solving. And it's a
Yep.
lot to do with data driven decisions. It's a
Yep.
lot to do with methodologies, research,
Yep.
and the art required in a UX designer or UX UI designer, is going away. In fact, आजकल people don't even say UI UX, they say UX UI or they just say UX. They drop UI completely. It's
Right.
almost like because you also do hiring, there's almost like I don't want UI people, I want UX person. So if I'm somebody who's trying to kind of build a great career, maybe become a director one day, maybe lead a big design team in a big company like
Mm.
you, what do I really need to look within and understand? Like, do I need to be more of an creative, aesthetic artist guy, or do I need to be somebody who's more research driven? If you
Mhm.
could kind of unpack what this role actually means in today's world, I think it'll be really helpful.
First of all, this role will always continue to evolve. As a designer, it will ask you to do certain things differently every day. Okay. So, really, just focusing on one thing will not cut it, right? So, as a designer, yes, you will have your core niche skill. Like, you will be really good at information design, like thinking about the architecture, right? You might be really a detail oriented person who loves to polish the UI, right? You will have your own niche, but I think if you have to keep stepping up as part of your career, you'll have to be an all rounder. You'll need to understand not just research, you'll need to understand aesthetics, you'll need to understand the basic design foundational principles, right? Of negative space and balance, and like as basic as it gets. So what I say is keep sharpening your core skill, which is your niche, which is what you're passionate about, but don't give up on everything else, because you will have to keep all your sort of different ammunitions ready while you are defending your designs, and you might have to pull one out and just share it. So frankly speaking, all my different understanding of different, be it UI, be it research, be it UX, basis context in which I am, what client I'm talking to, what product I'm working, different skills have come handy. Sometimes it is just about taking a step back and looking at the big picture has helped me without looking at the details. Sometimes just decluttering the UI and just really thinking about the typography or the color palette, that has been more important. So, if you ask me, one has to learn and keep learning continuously and improving, keeping one core skill as their niche. That's the simple answer.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. I think that makes a lot of sense. I feel they call it the inverted T principle, right? Where you're like
Yep.
this, you got one
Yep.
focus and you have a wider spread across
One.
other skills. I think
Yeah.
there's been a big evolution in what's expected of designers. I think a decade ago, the whole
Mm-hmm.
conversation was around specialism and niche and you be one night good at this one thing. And then I think that's really overcorrected. I wouldn't say overcorrected, but it's something really gone back to being a generalist, right? Where it's a hybrid where you do need to know a lot of things to get
Yeah.
context, as you said, to collaborate, as you said,
Yep.
but you need to be known for that one particular core
Yep.
skill as well. And coming to core skills, Shreyasi, I think I keep on reading this mantra when it comes to you, which is you like to kind of simplify things, and you also like to
Yeah.
do problem solving. If I can assume that's one of your cores, right? Could you
Yep.
talk about why that's your mantra and any particular example you have where that really helped you, kind of validated, okay, simplification and, problem solving really helps?
See, I think it could sound like a very cliche kind of a term, problem solving, simplifying. It's also very relevant in personal lives, right? To be able to solve. But it is a great pant, in my opinion, and it has worked for me in every stage of my career. So when in my early stage, when I was an individual contributor, this mantra was more applicable more at a project level, right? I had to really understand the problem of what the flawed workflow is about and then reimagine it, right? I had to really go deep, identify the problem and gaps in the IA or the site map of the website, and then do regrouping and card sorting and things like that, right? So there were processes which I could apply in simplifying at IC level. But now, as I moved on as a design leader, it has changed quite a bit, right? The problems that I face today is not problems that I can solve sometimes. It is mostly problems my team is facing, right? And these kind of problems can have varied solutions and methods, right? So my role primarily that I play today is to navigate these kind of problems and come to solution. To give you very few common examples that I face on a very regular basis is being asked to meet a very tight deadline, have the team work on a given project and deliver it, right? So that's a common problem. But then how you make sure you're aligning your teams, right? How you are setting the right sort of business expectation, understanding the criticality, and then sharing that criticality and the nature of the criticality with your team, bringing them on board, right, is the key role that I play today. It's bit subjective to give you exact solutions right now on how you navigate it, but that's one of the topics I can say. This if I have to think of few more examples which I do deal with today, maybe handling like very ambiguous requirements, right? Stakeholders have seen some new fancy feature that their competitor has recently launched. They have seen some fancy screens and UX of it, and they come back and say, you know what, we should just add this as part of our product. And for the team who's actually needs to work on it, they don't have clear requirements. They just have few keywords and they may just have these inspiration screens. So then what do I do to simplify their life, right? I then start getting into more conversation with these stakeholders. I start getting more clarity. What exactly did they like when they saw these competitors and the different flows that they did? So getting into this communication, like constant communication channel with stakeholders and getting into better clarity and iterating on our solution and then aligning back, that is another kind of a problem solving and simplifying. So these are my current challenges, way too different than how it was in the past. But yeah, I hope these are few examples, regular ones that I deal with.
Thanks for that. I think, very often a lot of designers, especially when they're young, don't factor in what it really means to be a design leader sometimes, and
Mhm.
it's a lot to do about operations, it's a lot to do about PNL, training, hiring, and it's not just making screens, or doing research. So I'm glad that, you kind of gave a sneak peek into what a leader's, day looks like. I actually have a follow-up on that where Today there's a huge stress on designers to become design managers and a
Mm-hmm.
huge stress on design managers to actually go and scale their design teams, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of pressurized to do more. And there's a lot of conversations around even like design colleges now getting shaped up every day now. There's a new design college coming out
Yeah.
every day. So
True.
so in the next few years, you'd see a huge exponential increase in the number of designers coming out there. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of highlight building teams. You were at Rebel Foods and I think you grew the team 3x in a year's time, from 5 to 15 people. And growing teams is a very hard thing to do. If you're coming as a new boss, integrating into a new team and then adding more to that is pretty challenging. If you are
Yeah.
somebody who exists in the company and you get a new boss, it's really hard for you to kind of be like, hey, this new person here is here. I'm in the company since 2 years. They have just joined
Right.
yesterday, and now things are kind of getting shaked up. I
Yeah.
see a lot of scale issues like that.
Yeah.
So, if there's any design manager who's kind of listening to this right now, what's your advice to rapidly scale a design team? Like, if you can give an example as well on how you've been doing it in your career, that'll be awesome.
Sure. So you touched upon Rebel Food. So I moved from consulting into the startup world. First of all, very different world it was for me, right? A lot more fast paced. So for those who don't know, Rebel Food is a food tech startup who run a lot of cloud kitchens with different brands. Few of these are like you might have heard Beru's, Oven Story, Fast Foods. Just for the audience, right? And I joined Rebel Foods in mid COVID when they were actually shaping up different products. One of the products they were shaping up was called Eat Sure. It was a concept where anyone could basically order food from different restaurants in single order. So that was one team that I was supposed to build, very customer facing B2C kind of team. And then second, they were also building a suite of enterprise application that would be running their operation. So everything that happens in their cloud kitchen are using certain kind of application. So you order from these apps like Swiggy, Zomato, sure, and it lands on the cloud kitchens. There is a large screen that would display those orders, right? And then they had the different apps for inventory management from where all the raw materials would come. So building a team with two different focus areas, one which would work on completely customer facing apps, and second which would be B2B enterprise scale, that kind of product suite. So I think yes, one of the key challenges in a rapidly growing team is you sort of tend to dilute your standards of hiring, right? Everyone is pushing you, leadership is saying, get me this person, I want to deliver this feature, right? So the hardest part for any design leader to do is to stick to your, JD and hire the right sort of talent and bring the right sort of keep the right set of standards in your team that you want. So patience is going to be playing a key role, right? And to make sure that you're bringing the right set of people, you cannot do it alone. You have to empower the team that's already there, right? You spoke about tenured people who are there. So empower them, make them part of your decision making, and build like a hiring framework. Obviously, build together, build a hiring framework, some of the key aspects that you want to look for in your talent that you're hiring, document it properly, and not just on day to day responsibilities but also on the cultural fitment side. Document those aspects as well, and align everyone who's going to take interview, that these are the things that need to look at when you're talking to candidates. Don't just align your team but also the talent team, the HR, right, who are going to find you those leads. So I think having those frameworks, empowering your team and aligning everyone, your own team, your talent team, all of these things play a big role. And obviously, there are challenges around budget and roles and grades, all of that are there. But the core part gets solved when you work on these things that I spoke about. And to align the core values that you want the cultural fitment. I think one thing, Kavan, that helped me is don't keep it just documented in the paper. When you are actually taking interviews, try to have certain sort of questions or case studies where you could sort of understand and gauge what this person is thinking about this value, right? Because see, design and certain principles they will adapt basis the business ask and the user's need. But the cultural aspect is very difficult to shape, so you have to be very careful in understanding what are this designer's motivation, what makes them kick, right? Click. So yeah, I actually share a lot of core values that I want in my team during the interview and ask them to react to it, right? And see how they sort of answer those questions because none of those things are actually part of the design portfolio that they share. Portfolios are very UX focused. So, yeah, these are a few
Right.
things I can share.
Yeah, no, I think makes so much sense, and I really resonate with what you said a little bit earlier on, where what tends to happen is because there is so much work and the bandwidth's choking up and there are,
Yeah.
releases coming, you settle for mediocrity.
Yeah.
What is your advice in a situation where, you desperately need to get somebody in?
Mhm.
And, I think there are two thoughts people usually have. One is that, we'll hire slow.
Yeah.
We'll be very, very careful with, who we want to have because it's a difficult decision to reverse. And the other thought is that it's very hard to find the right people in a hiring process because people might be faking it, right? Like you really
Yeah.
don't know who the person is till you join them. We all have spent sometimes months into hiring for a person
Yeah.
who just doesn't work out despite
True.
that.
True.
So they're like, get them, we'll fire fast. And so it's hire slow versus fire fast, right? Like these two advices given, which do you think you end up choosing usually, and what has been the correct strategy in your career so far?
I might have hinted it already. I always try to hire slow. That has
Right.
always been my strategy because when I bring someone in my team, I actually bond with them at a personal level. So for me to have that other option is very difficult, personally speaking. So I would rather go slow than really go fast and take a bad.
If you're getting constant pressure of like deadlines and deliveries, like how do you manage them?
See, I think the ability to say no is important, right? And obviously, one has to understand priorities. Business priorities are important, but still, there are areas where you can sort of juggle with things and you can sort of push back on things which might not make a lot of impact in near. So park those ideas, work with your leaders, and be transparent on why you're taking this stand, right? You have to tell them the pros and cons of your decisions, and then they'll understand, right? So, yeah, I think I have personally always kept it slow, and I have a lot of time reached out to my network as well to make sure I'm doing like a 360, what do you say, background check of the person I'm bringing on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I love the advice that, there are some decisions which you can reverse easily, some you cannot. And hiring is one it's really hard to reverse because it sets a lot of things into motion. There's a lot of domino effects.
Yeah.
So it makes a ton of sense. And this actually brings me to my next question. You actually spoke about how you have to say no, you have to convince people, you have to actually, have a certain vision of the role, you have to
Yeah.
understand culture and impart that with your team. Now, these are very crucial for anybody to kind of become a leader in any company.
Yeah.
And I personally feel India is in a huge need to get a lot of good design leaders. Everybody's teaching, even online or offline, how to, execute, but nobody really is talking about how to kind of manage, a design team, a design project, feature an app, etc. So what skills do I need to sharpen as, let's say, a mid-level designer or a senior designer right now to
Hmm.
really catapult myself into a design leader position?
I think very interesting question and difficult to answer, but I'll try my best. Okay. So, see, Kavan, moved from a individual contributor role to a leader role when I was in consulting at Deloitte, and it made me resilient, because I was pushed in front of different kinds of client doing a lot of hard conversation. So I think one thing that I feel is going to be very important and has been important for me is being constantly aware of my own mistakes, or being constantly open to taking feedback, not just from clients or stakeholders, but from your peers, from your own managers, from your team members, right? And sort of doing retrospection, reflection, making sure that you are trying to improve ways in which you're taking decisions, and course correcting, right? So, constantly being open to feedback is one thing. And second, very close to this one is being adaptable, right? You have to keep adapting to different teams, different personalities as you become a leader, right? So this obviously is important. See, base skills like knowing design at system level, having an understanding of processes, articulation, all of that we can learn with experience. We can slowly, steadily pick up, right, during your career. But the hard thing to do is understanding how you will, balance your day, your ways of working as a leader, right? That is very difficult. I'll give you few example when I say balancing your day and ways of working, right, as a leader. One hard thing that every leader has to do is keep switching context, right? And that is something that one needs to, again, improve as a skill to become a leader. Switching context in conversations, like in consulting, you have to switch context because you're working with a team who's probably working on an e-commerce portal, and then cut to next hour you're in a banking scenario, right? Cut to something else. So switching your context becomes very important, and obviously adding value to that conversation. You can just randomly talk anything, right? So if you can build that skill, is it's going to help, not just in consulting, but even like today in product also, and in day to day. I might be talking to someone in my team about their personal problem. I'm having a one-on-one check-in, and they're sharing something. I'm just trying to understand where they're coming from. Cut to next call, you are talking to engineering about deadline, UI pattern, constraints, right? So your whole mind has to shift, your tone of voice, the way you behave, your way you put yourself out there. You'll have to switch, right? So that's a big skill to imbibe. So that's one theme. I'm just thinking, yeah. Another thing is, because at a leadership position, you will have a lot of dynamic personalities in your team, right? And especially with Gen Z, everyone has a say, and there will be so many ad hoc conflicts that you will be asked to navigate very regularly. So I think the other important skill as a leader would be, don't react like instantaneously, right? Don't give out solutions. You have to avoid doing that, taking sides in a conflict, because unless you have a full understanding of everyone's perspective and then taking mediation steps, then only you can build trust. So I feel that is another area, being fair when you're doing your resolution. That is another area, I think, to navigate these conflicts in a very, unbiased manner, is another skill that one needs to build.
Absolutely. I think, I completely resonate with so many things you've mentioned, generally, even beyond design, right? It really comes down to how you manage people and how you kind of, convince people to do things. So it really boils down to those aspects. Now, you said a very beautiful thing where I think consulting kind of pushes you to do conflict resolution, pushes you to kind of become a better people person, a manager, and then talk to various kinds of people and even switch, as you said.
Yeah.
Do you advise, UX UI folks to actually consider a consulting gig before they move to the product side?
Oh, definitely. It will change your personality. And this is coming from my personal experience. I have grown leaps and bounds being in consulting, because you are thrown under the bus at all times. and you have to manage your situation. You will really feel proud and feel that you own this, but then, yeah, you're there on your own, fighting your own battle. So it will definitely shape you and in early in your
Should you do this
career.
in like the start of your career or should you do this at the end of your career?
See, I think if you can do this early in your career, because then you can get to do different things, dirty your hands in different kind of use cases, scenarios, you understand different users' perspectives, different domains, work with different set of team members, engineering and clients are different, it keeps changing. I think early on in your career is obviously gonna help. And yeah, there's no harm in doing it later stage as well, but later stage it might be a bit tough for you to sort of navigate. Yeah, is what I feel
Yeah,
personally.
that's fair. I think, we spoke about like having a rounded understanding of things, and I think consulting really will put you under so many various kind of projects and people that your
Yeah,
learning will be really accelerated.
yeah,
And I also feel consulting is a lot about convincing, you have to convince your clients, you have to convince your managers, you have to convince your team that you're on the right track and convincing yourself that you're on the right track. So I think it really helps you, I think, through a very wide net. And
yep.
once you do that for a couple of years, I think then you can actually decide where you want to go deep. And going deep and being detail oriented, I think is extremely important on a brand side or on a company side where you're working on one product and you to really look at it not just from a delivery standpoint, but then from a P&L standpoint, that is it actually making money? Is it actually moving business metrics? So I think once
True.
again, I think I completely agree. It's some solid advice there. We spoke a
Yeah.
lot about cross-functional teams, right? And that's another area, right, where I see a lot of design managers sometimes struggle. Like you said, you have to switch often, you have to speak to engineering and product, you have to kind of do whatever you can to get a budget to hire people or convince other people to maybe, change stuff. Can you kind of tell a little bit about setting up such a cross-functional, process? There's
Hmm.
certain things a design leader must do to make sure that teams are more cross-functional and there is better collaboration between design and everybody around it.
I think collaboration, Kavan, is non-negotiable, okay? Because we are not artists, right? We are not someone who's making a painting sitting in an island, coming back and then showing it. And we are actually shipping products for our end users, which has to be executed and sent to the market. So if you are not collaborating with these cross-functional skills within your team, your designs will remain in Figma. It will never see light of the day. And frankly, I have done this. I have made the mistake where I have spent hours perfecting my wireframes and UX. And then when I show it to PMs, they say, oh, this is not there. Or engineering, they say this is not feasible, right? And then I had to go back, fix it, added edge case scenario. So as I mentioned, you have to collaborate. And in our early times, we did not have these amazing tools for collaboration. We had to actually set block meetings with our team members and now take them through these sessions where we would show them our designs. But today, I think we have tools like Figma, which are all cloud based, Slack channels where you can talk and comment and tag your screens and ask for comments. So personally, I feel it's become easier for you to collaborate. Why should you not take benefit of it, right? What are the different ways which you can do it, and especially the ways in which I try to tell my team to improve collaboration is start sharing abstract ideas which are in certain form, right? Visualize. If you got three bullet points, try to move it to a whiteboard in a flow diagram or in like very sketches, very low fidelity sketches, and maybe just put block diagrams, but float it around.
Yeah.
See how engineering or product, what is their reaction, right? How do they think you're on the right track? And so visualizing and making pictures and then sharing quickly as possible rather than like putting your pixels in place and then sharing. I think that's the key. Start sharing early, get feedback, and keep improving, obviously. Second is, I think designers tend to use a lot of jargons when they do cross collaboration. They feel everyone is a designer, right? And they start using very UX heavy sort of terminologies. That I think we need to be a bit careful about. So we need to tailor the way we speak. If it's engineering, speak their language, keep it simple, talk about what tech aspects have we considered, what are the constraints that we've considered, what are the edge cases that you've included in your designs. Talk their language, which they understand, right? And similarly, if you're talking to a business stakeholders, they don't care about tech constraints, right? What they care about is what objective business objective you're solving. What will my end user get gain from? How are competitors doing this? So bring that layer there. So I think we should not keep a generic story. We should tailor the way we tell our story of the same design basis the audience that you're talking to. And yeah, certain times we feel everyone understands what design process looks like. So you just directly skip to your solution. But that's not true. A lot of people are not as ahead in terms of understanding or educated in knowing what are our processes, what are our principles as designers. Why why do we keep saying this will take these many weeks to come with, right? Create. People will think, oh, ये box यहाँ तो डालना है, यहाँ डालना है, right? कितना time लगेगा? So lot of time needs to be spent in really walking them through the design process, maybe making them part of your design journey, right? So that helps improve collaboration. That makes them understand and see the real value that you as a designer bring in front, right?
The biggest takeaway for me from what you just said is co-building. Like a lot of times
Yeah.
people don't co-build together. It's like they're in silos. They're like, okay, now I have to make this product, so I'm going to make it the best design.
Yeah.
And somebody else out there is really trying to see, okay, how does this product help me move my sales metric or some other metric? And when they all come together, there's no
Cohesion.
cohesion.
Yeah.
So the leader on the top is like, this doesn't work, just skip all of this.
True.
So I think it's extremely important, as you said, right? Like people shouldn't be really thinking to make pieces of art. They should really be kind of looking to solve a problem, and it requires a cross-functional, view on that. I
Yeah.
want to follow up on this though. I think while you said a lot of good things on what designers can do to,
Yeah.
convey what they've done better,
Yeah.
one area I keep on seeing a lot of pushback or a pull and push is when non-design teams try to influence design decisions, right? Where they're like, use this color or use this button or why don't you use this system?
Yeah.
And then, people are like, who are you to tell me, I'm the designer and you're the product guy or you're the engineer.
Yeah.
And that is where I see collaboration at its lowest. So in such situations, like, what do you do and what do you tell the other departments who are maybe very passionate or maybe very knowledgeable also of a particular specific design style they want? And any which ways, at the end of the day, design is subjective, so
Yeah.
this tends to happen. How do you solve these problems?
See, first of all, no design suggestion is bad suggestion. Okay. I think first I tell designers don't get offended by suggestion. Okay. They have a point of view and they are sharing it. That's okay, right? It doesn't mean that what you have created is bad or incorrect. They are looking at it from a different perspective. So try to understand their perspective. There are always such scenarios that keep happening, Kavan. And I think the best way is to make sure you have some data points to defend your design decisions, like real data to show everyone that why this one is better than the other one. So doing a lot of these A/B testing, doing using some of these tools to get some actual metrics to talk about, or doing benchmarking studies, right? Competitor benchmark. So you have to try to defend your designs with proper data points. You can't just say मुझे ये कलर पसंद है तो मैं यही रखूंगा and आपको पसंद है आपको रखो. That will not work. So I try to navigate by asking the teams to do some due diligence on their own beforehand itself, so that such scenarios, when you are questioned, you have data point to share, right? Lot of these ideas will keep getting thrown at you. You'll have to take it with a pinch of salt. Some ideas might be really great, you incorporate, but not everything you can. And be very transparent about it. That yes, we heard you. Sometimes people just want to share and they want you to just listen. They don't really want you to incorporate it, right? But they have these ideas, so they want to share. And as a designer, I feel it's good to listen to everyone's point of view, but also have a very strong say as to why you chose to do this in a certain manner. Yeah, but you have to be open. You cannot get upset about someone telling you do this, do that, do this, do that. So,
It's almost, sometimes I feel designers need to kind of operate like therapists. You can be like really unbiased, you do really understand where people are
true,
coming from and have no judgments. I think
true.
as a sage, you really need to kind of think from that point of view. I know it's hard for a lot of designers because they equate their self-worth to their work.
Yeah,
But I think the faster you understand, everything you mentioned, I think the more happier you will be
yeah.
in the profession, of design.
Yeah, and
Um,
I always keep telling everyone choose your battles. There are some battle, it is okay to lose those battles, but the key ones is where you need to focus on. So just fight for those, right? Don't try to win all the battles. So true.
Absolutely. Well put. I want to now jump into the last part of our podcast. I think we're almost at time.
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you two things. I think first up, I want to touch upon what you feel, is the future of design. A lot of people are scared when they see, these co-pilots being launched by our favorite tools itself. And a lot of talk around and a lot of reels around how you type these 10 words and the website is ready, who needs
Yeah.
designers, and all this is going viral. You're also working in a company which is very actively building AI solutions, right?
Yeah.
It's gone pretty viral as well, whatever Salesforce announced in their various announcements they made some time ago. So
Yeah.
what's your take, right? If AI is, right, it's already the elephant in the room. Like, how best do I kind of factor that in while deciding, where my career is going?
See, I'll also make some assumptions, right? I also don't know, frankly, where it'll take, but I think it's going to be an interesting future for designers because it'll be beyond aesthetics. Because aesthetics will be done, like the execution stuff will be done, in my opinion, by AI. And so it'll be beyond that. You will be doing not just execution, but a lot of thinking. Like you rightly put, Salesforce did announce Agent Force, which is basically very layman's term. It is ability to create autonomous sort of agents which can do n number of tasks, right, in a given context. So you can build those within your product. As of today, designers in our company, they are actually working very closely with product to carve out these use cases, right? They are going through different data patterns, usage patterns, crafting use cases where these kind of features will be important. It is a designer who is doing that, no one else, right? The UI might remain same. The UI pattern is very same. It's a chatbot kind of a thing. But what you are actually putting into that as use cases where people are hacking their brains, and it's all collaborative that's happening. Designers are playing a big role, and they will continue to play a big role in identifying their use cases. So the evolution of designer, to put it simply, you will no more be executioner who are creating things that are going to be visible in a screen, but you will be addressing a lot of bigger issues. You'll be thinking about data privacy. You'll be thinking about removing and mitigating biases in certain interfaces, right? You will be taking ethical design decisions. If I put it like this, how does it change someone's behavior, right? So these are aspects that a designer will have to consider. And as a design leader, I think we are going to have far more opportunities to influence businesses and their strategies by sort of championing our users needs, right, bringing those patterns and telling businesses to work around those patterns. So these are some things. And then one other thing which could also potentially boom, that I foresee, is this whole multi-sensory experience building. Like today we only have experience which we look through our eyes, right? Some of it is haptic, which we can touch. But I think that will increase. Maybe you could tomorrow smell the interfaces, taste, like all those aspects of multisensory engagement might come in play, and designers will play a big role. Yeah.
I think you said a lot of apt things there. I always have felt that with every advancement of technology, what has happened is that the craft you need to execute your idea
Mm-hmm.
keeps on getting eliminated. Where, like, I'll give you my example. I can't draw very well. I'm actually really bad at it. For some reason, I just can't draw. And when I was in my school, I went to some counselor who just advised me against getting into animation, saying that you'll suck. And
Okay.
I kind of got offended, and I just joined a bunch of YouTube channels. And Andrew Kramer, for everybody who's never learned, kind of just helped me understand After Effects so well that I was better than a lot of people, while being in school, just because software helped me kind of do a lot of things I
True.
couldn't manually do.
True.
And today I feel with AI, even that's not a requirement anymore. Like,
True.
if think right, if you ask the right questions, if you know the right problems,
Yeah.
you'll be able to execute. So as you very well said, I think that's a big trend.
Yeah.
And this trend, I think the most exciting part about the craft aspect though is in augmentation, augmented reality, right? Where the kind of medium is changing. Like, you
Yep.
don't know what's the experience designed for VR
Yeah.
headset
Yeah.
or an AR headset. Like, you really don't know how it
Yeah.
operates. And I think the people who are at the forefront in design are actually working on those aspects. So
Right.
I think
Right.
some fantastic advice there with
Yeah.
respect to AI and emerging
Yeah.
tech.
One last thing would be this: there'll be a lot of social topics that designers will have to take up as a mantle to solve for, because we are seeing so many issues, global warming, sustainability. Those are going to be key areas where designers are going to play a large role, in my opinion, as well. Like while you were talking, I was also like thoughts flowing. So I thought I'll just add.
100%. Yeah, I think that's an incredible area because I think it's a real need. Like, the
Yeah,
world needs it, otherwise we'll all die.
yeah,
So I think it's always a good place to be at. And a lot of accessibility needs to happen there. A
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
information asymmetry and a lot of things kind of can be solved easily. So I think building in that category makes a ton of sense.
yep,
Shashi, I think I'm going to hop on to the last question now. And I
sure.
know you've been giving a lot of advice since the start of the conversation, but
Maybe too much.
no, I don't think there's ever something ever like too much advice. As you said, all feedback is good feedback. But I think a lot of people would, as I mentioned at the start, aspire to kind of follow a kind of career you had, right? They would want to kind of become leaders in large organizations or exciting companies.
Hmm.
Any parting thoughts which could be advised by you to really kind of help young designers know what to do in order to kind of build a meaningful career?
See, I think the way I see is, when you are trying to build your career, you might not know exactly what and how you want to build it, right? So, to really make some assumptions and work towards that goal will be really hard. So, the way I'll share how I have done it, right? And I love this quote which I want to share. Like a small drop can create like a ripple, like, and it can turn waves into change. So if you're passionate about any small idea or any small concept or a topic, go for it. Like, just take baby steps, build on it, create your sort of point of view around it. Don't wait for an opportunity, a big opportunity where you will be able to make like a big change and showcase it to others, right? Build those small passion projects which you can showcase, and you can show that your thought process, right? And show your curiosity, show your learning, your continuous learning. I think that helps show your true personality as a designer when you're going for your next career switch, or when you're trying to get to a different organization, right? So continue to do those passion projects, because at work you might be doing something where you might not have the opportunity to do end to end, or you might not have opportunity to think about a social impact, right? So do side projects. Yeah, and keep learning. That's my last.
That's really well put, and I think it's a fantastic point to end the podcast on. I feel that, I think as a designer, you always have an advantage, like you're an artist and you can
Yeah,
really swap your specialization, change your focuses, and really kind of make your own future literally, using the kind of, acumen you have. So
if you
that's
say
a
so. If you say so.
that's that's definitely something I believe in. I think it's very
Yeah,
hard for a
yeah,
doctor to become a lawyer, for example, but
it's
for
true.
an animator to become a UX guy and a UX person to kind of jump into graphic and graphic into something else is actually easy. It
It,
really comes down to the thought you have and the skills you have to execute that thought. So I think it's some brilliant advice. Thank you so much for
thank
joining
you.
me. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. It was really awesome. And I think I was thinking a lot about how my career got shaped. So it was nostalgic in a way, but fun. So thanks to you, Kavan, to give me this opportunity where I could share so much about my journey. Thank you so much.
It is always a pleasure to talk to you and so nice to finally have a long chat after a while. For everybody, who's tuned in so far, thank you so much. If you'd like to see another design leader, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. A new episode will coming out very, very soon. Bye bye.